New York City, 1946. A Liberty ship waited at the pier. Columns of German prisoners of war filed slowly up the gangway. 3 long years in American camps were over. They were going home at last. Yet on the crowded decks, joy was strikingly absent. Men stood silently at the rail, watching the receding shore. Duffel bags, heavy with carefully saved canteen soap, coffee, and American cigarettes, lay near their feet, packed not for comfort, but for a country grappling with famine. Some of these men had formally petitioned, in writing, to remain prisoners, begging not to be released. The stark PW stencil marked each bag. The towering New York skyline began its slow, inevitable slide astern. No welcoming committees awaited them in Europe. No familiar faces. And for most aboard, this ship was not sailing for Germany at all. This unexpected journey began far earlier. May 1945. The war in Europe was over. Roughly 380,000 German prisoners remained in the United States. They filled hundreds of American camps. The 1929 Geneva Convention promised prompt repatriation after hostilities ended, with the least possible delay. But America's urgent farm labor shortage did not end with the fighting. The prisoners kept working. Through the 1945 harvest and deep into 1946, they earned roughly 80 cents a day, paid in canteen scrip, and many accumulated savings books. Camp canteens offered essentials, soap, toothpaste, even American beer. In the war's final months, a select few received something stranger. The U.S. Army's Special Projects Division ran special courses at posts like Fort Getty and Fort Eustis. Lessons in democracy, in civics in English. The goal, prepare selected men for a different Germany, a reconstructed democratic Germany. Surveys suggested roughly 3/4 of these prisoners left with a favorable view of America, yet the official word repatriation was flexible, more than just a return. A rumor moved through the camps, camp after camp, going home might not mean going home. January 1946. A new order arrived from the U.S. War Department. Every German prisoner must return home. But the camps answered with an unprecedented defiance. Documented accounts describe petitions addressed all the way to President Truman, begging to stay. Hunger strikes at Camp Concordia, Kansas. Men consulting lawyers, asking if their own captivity could be extended. About 1% formally requested to remain. Washington denied every plea. Diplomacy required every single prisoner to go back. So the ships departed New York, steaming east, and then they docked at Le Havre, at Liverpool, not at Hamburg. Under Allied agreements, hundreds of thousands of German prisoners were transferred to France and Britain. Not freedom, not home, labor reparations. Roughly 700,000 German prisoners, many handed over by the Americans, ended up in French hands alone. Their work, coal mines, rubble clearing, field work. In Britain, over 400,000 German POWs were held in 1946. Their hands performed a fifth of all British agricultural labor that year. The gangway drops. Signs appear in unfamiliar French script. New guards in unfamiliar uniforms read out lists of names. A chilling realization settles in. Home was not cancelled. It was postponed, perhaps for years. A man captured in Tunisia in 1943 could now face 5 years of captivity, 3 of those after the war officially ended. The prolonged detention sparked public outrage in Britain itself. The Save Europe Now campaign petitioned the government in August 1946. Prime Minister Clement Attlee announced a response. 15,000 prisoners would be released each month. But the last prisoners of the Western Allies did not reach Germany until 1948. The Germany these men finally reached bore little resemblance to the home they had left. For those stepping off the ships in 1946, 1947, even 1948, the country was a desolation. Cities they had known as vibrant centers now existed as addresses, often without streets, without standing buildings. Miles of rubble fields stretched where neighborhoods once stood, concrete dust hanging in the air. Millions of families were broken, relatives dead or missing entirely, swallowed by the war's chaos. Others had been expelled from the vast territories of the East. Life itself was a struggle for basic survival. During the brutal hunger winter of 1946-47, official rations in the occupation zones plummeted, dipping toward 1,000 odd calories a day, far below what a working adult needed. It was a stark, almost unbelievable reversal of fortunes. Many of these men had gained weight stacking hay on American farms. Now they stood in endless silent queues, clutching ration cards, waiting for bread. Then an unexpected current began to flow. Letters started crossing the Atlantic again, not to government offices, but to American farmhouses. A documented pattern soon emerged across the Midwest. Families like the Lutyens family of Nebraska kept up a lively, personal exchange with their former prisoners, men who had once been the enemy. Into the German ruins, they mailed precious parcels, food, clothing, sometimes small luxuries. Years passed, and the correspondence held. Some American families eventually crossed the ocean themselves to visit the men they had once employed. The dynamic had utterly shifted. Former soldiers of the Third Reich were now on the receiving end of American parcels, an ongoing act of quiet grace, repeated family after family, blooming from the ashes of war. The generosity, however, carried a deeper, unsettling complexity. The Geneva Convention had been largely honored in American camps, but the transfer of hundreds of thousands of men to years of labor in France and Britain profoundly strained its promise. Contemporary press and relief organizations, including the Red Cross, documented dire conditions in some French camps in 1945, severe shortages, even of basic sustenance, and the nostalgia itself sat uneasily. For many of these men, captivity in the enemy's country had been the safest, best-fed years of their entire war, while Allied prisoners in German hands had starved, sickened, and died. Back home, some Germans looked sideways at the returners. These men arrived comparatively healthy, carrying valuable goods, speaking warmly of America, into a country where their countrymen fought over a daily crust of bread. A quiet resentment simmered. The stark contrast was unyielding. These men were pawns, first in the grinding machinery of war, then in its fraught, complex accounting. Every petition had failed, every prisoner had to go, but one man refused the ships entirely. In September 1945, Georg Gattner slipped out of his camp in New Mexico rather than face repatriation. He lived under an American name, in plain sight, for 40 years, and only surrendered in 1985, the last German prisoner of war in America. For the rest, the pull of America worked more slowly. By German estimates, roughly 5,000 former prisoners emigrated back to the United States in the years after the war. Thousands more returned to visit, hands weaker. Once a prisoner at Fort Robinson, Nebraska, made his return permanent. He practiced as a respected physician in Georgetown, Maine for decades. And nearly 47 years after his internment, Gerhard Holing, a retired electrician from Bremen, stood once more at the site of his former Louisiana camp, remembering the heat, the lenient guards, the whispering cane fields. The country that had held them prisoner became the country they chose. Don't let these moments of unexpected history be lost to time. Subscribe so they aren't, like this video, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below.